I have here 3 examples of grace and work being combined. The first one does not allow grace and work to be combined, but the second and third do. Now, if you know the scripture, you'll know that it says in Romans 11:6 that if it is of grace, it is not of works, and if it is of works, it is not of grace. So why is it that I've been able to come up with 2 examples of something being both of grace and of work? Well, it's because Paul was referring to Judaism being the covenant through which we are justified, and that being the case, it would be that you obey to gain something that was offered, in which case the scripture is true. That which is gained by obedience to gain something that was offered is never of grace, because it's always owed, and grace is never owed, and that which is owed is never grace. But if you obey to keep it, it is not owed. How do we know that? Well, because one who is owed has no need to obey to keep it. You see, if you're owed and someone says, oh, you need to obey me to keep that thing that you're owed, you can tell them, no, I don't need to obey, you owe me. Or it's owed to me, I don't have to obey, I'm owed. So one who has a need to obey is obviously not owed, and if that which is not owed is grace, then one who has a need to obey to keep it has grace. So we see here that it's of works in that it's kept by works, and it's of grace because it's not owed. So working to gain it, as would be the case if we had to go through Judaism to become justified, you're left owed. And that's what he's saying in Romans 4 verse 4. He's talking mainly about circumcision. And of course that which is owed is not of grace, according to Romans 4 verse 4. And just logic in general. We don't even need scripture to back that up. We know that something that is a gift is not owed, and something that is owed is never a gift, and grace is a gift. But on the other hand, working to keep it proves it is of grace and not owed. And so maybe this is what James was talking about. James says man is justified by work and not by faith only. Notice James isn't getting into these hard arguments trying to prove Judaism is no longer required. James wasn't dealing with any of that, so that's why James isn't mentioning grace and not of works and through faith and all this other stuff like Paul was. 2 totally different topics. James was teaching how to live it out and how to keep God's salvation. Paul was talking about how we don't need to be Jews to enter salvation. And the third situation here is another one where it's of grace and of work. If the faith or work was not done to gain something offered, but a gift was given for it, well, it's obviously grace because it's a gift, and it's of work because it was given because of work. So you can see how we have to be careful about how we read the scripture. If there's scripture in there saying if it's of grace and it's not of works, and I've just shown you 2 examples of it being of grace and of works, we need to be careful with those particular passages. And if you are believing a doctrine which uses those passages as like the key foundational passages to prove your doctrine, there's a good chance that the devil has taken you for a ride. What kind of person would use a passage which is extremely easy to misinterpret and misuse? The devil. The devil has used these verses saying, oh, if it's of grace, it can't be that we have to obey to keep it, because that would mean we're owed. No, a need to obey to keep it proves it's of grace. So, yeah, the faith alone doctrine is a deception. So go and read the Bible if you haven't already, and just look for those verses that seem to be saying that you have to obey to keep it, and understand that they are not going against Paul's assertion that that which is of grace cannot also be of works.